Modern military technology has fundamentally transformed how nations defend their airspace. Advanced radar networks and sophisticated missile systems represent investments of billions in national defense infrastructure. These systems were designed with one primary goal: establishing complete aerial superiority. However, recent developments in military operations have revealed critical vulnerabilities that challenge decades of established doctrine. The vulnerability of movement. Military strategists have long understood that the most critical phase for any defensive system occurs not during active engagement, but during repositioning. This principle has become increasingly relevant as warfare evolves. When sophisticated defense networks must relocate, they enter periods of heightened exposure that skilled adversaries can exploit with remarkable effectiveness. This vulnerability stems from fundamental operational requirements. Defense systems achieve maximum effectiveness when deployed in fixed positions where all components function as an integrated network. During movement, this integration temporarily dissolves, creating windows of opportunity that modern reconnaissance can detect and exploit. Strategic context and tactical decisions. Military operations often create cascading effects that force difficult strategic choices. When offensive capabilities become constrained, commanders must adapt their tactical approaches. This adaptation frequently requires repositioning assets designed for one purpose to fulfill different operational requirements. Such repositioning creates complex challenges. Systems optimized for aerial interception must be moved to new positions for alternative missions. This movement necessitates travel through exposed terrain, along predictable routes, through areas where observation is difficult to prevent. Each of these factors compounds vulnerability, intelligence, and preparation. Professional military operations depend heavily on comprehensive intelligence gathering. Successful operations result not from reactive responses, but from methodical preparation that anticipates enemy actions before they occur. This preparation involves multiple intelligence disciplines working in coordination. Reconnaissance assets employ various technologies to monitor potential operational areas. Thermal imaging systems track movement patterns continuously. Electronic surveillance monitors communications and command signals. This multi-layered approach creates detailed understanding of enemy capabilities, intentions, and likely courses of action. Intelligence analysts study doctrinal patterns to predict how forces will behave under specific circumstances. They identify standard procedures, typical formations, and habitual practices. This knowledge enables them to anticipate not just what adversaries will do, but exactly how and when they will do it. Understanding. System architecture. Modern defense networks consist of multiple interconnected components, each serving specific functions. Radar systems provide detection and tracking capabilities. Command vehicles coordinate responses across the network. Launcher platforms deliver actual defensive fire. Support vehicles provide logistics, fuel, and maintenance. This distributed architecture offers advantages in normal operations. Components can separate to reduce vulnerability to single strikes. However, this same distribution creates dependencies. The network functions effectively only when all components maintain coordination through active communication and shared situational awareness. The radar component serves as the central nervous system for these networks. It detects incoming threats, calculates trajectories, assigns targets, and provides guidance information. Without functional radar, launch platforms become unable to engage effectively. Command coordination breaks down. The network transforms from an integrated system into isolated components, the mechanics of convoy movement. Military convoys follow established procedures designed to balance protection with operational efficiency. Defense system convoys typically arrange vehicles in formations that place vulnerable assets in protected positions while maintaining ability to respond to threats. These formations reflect decades of doctrinal development based on conventional threat models. Radar vehicles position centrally for protection. Command elements stay close to maintain control. Launch platforms distribute to prevent single strikes from eliminating multiple systems. Support elements follow at intervals. This arrangement makes tactical sense against many threat types. However, it also creates predictability. Forces with persistent surveillance capabilities can study these patterns, identify key assets, and plan strikes optimized against specific formations. Persistent observation and target selection. Modern reconnaissance platforms operate continuously over operational areas, maintaining awareness of ground movements without interruption. These platforms don't announce their presence. They observe silently, tracking targets over extended periods while waiting for optimal engagement conditions. This patience represents a fundamental shift in military operations. Rather than rushing to engage detected targets, modern tactics emphasize waiting for conditions that maximize strike effectiveness while minimizing risk. Platforms track targets through multiple phases of movement, studying patterns and identifying moments of maximum vulnerability. Optimal engagement conditions occur when targets enter terrain that limits their options. Open areas without cover prevent quick defensive responses. Road segments without alternate routes trap targets in predictable paths. Positions distant from support elements ensure delayed reaction to attacks. Priority targeting and network disruption. Effective strikes against complex systems require understanding which components are most critical. Not all vehicles in a military convoy hold equal value. Some represent key nodes whose destruction disproportionately degrades overall capability. For integrated defense networks, radar platforms represent highest value targets. Destroying radar eliminates the network's ability to detect threats, assign targets, and coordinate responses. Launch platforms without radar guidance lose their primary functionality. Command elements cannot coordinate what they cannot detect. The entire system degrades from an integrated network to disconnected components. Initial strikes therefore focus on radar elimination. These strikes employ precision rather than overwhelming force. The goal is not to obliterate, but to disable specific capabilities. A successful strike renders radar systems non-functional, communication severed, coordination impossible. Systematic dismantling. Following initial strikes against command and control nodes, operations proceed to systematic elimination of remaining assets. This approach prevents any possibility of network reconstitution while maximizing destruction of valuable equipment. Launch platforms become secondary targets. These systems carry substantial firepower in the form of ready missiles. Strikes against launch platforms often trigger secondary explosions as onboard munitions detonate, amplifying damage beyond the initial impact. A single precise strike can eliminate not just the launcher, but damage adjacent vehicles through secondary effects. Command vehicles receive attention even after radar destruction. These platforms contain communication equipment and trained personnel whose loss further degrades any recovery capability. Destroying command vehicles ensures that even surviving systems cannot reorganize or request support. Support vehicles, sometimes overlooked in tactical analysis, represent important targets. These platforms carry fuel, spare components, and additional munitions. Their destruction means surviving systems cannot refuel, repair, or rearm. Even vehicles that escape immediate destruction become stranded without logistical support. Cost asymmetry in modern warfare. Perhaps the most significant aspect of these engagements involves the extreme cost differential between attacking platforms and targeted systems. Modern small unmanned platforms can be produced for modest investment, measured in tens of thousands per unit. The systems they target represent investments of millions. A single sophisticated launcher system costs approximately $50 million to produce and deploy. Radar platforms exceed this investment. Command centers, support vehicles, and trained personnel add further value. Total losses from successful strikes can reach hundreds of millions from engagement costs measured in hundreds of thousands. This asymmetry fundamentally alters military calculations. Forces employing low-cost platforms can sustain trading losses while inflicting disproportionate damage. Forces dependent on expensive systems face unsustainable attrition rates. Traditional force-on-force calculations break down when cost ratios reach such extremes. Human capital and institutional knowledge, beyond hardware losses, successful strikes eliminate trained personnel whose replacement requires years of investment. Operating sophisticated defense systems demands extensive technical education and practical experience. Personnel must master complex tracking algorithms, coordination procedures, and split-second decision protocols. Losing experienced operators means losing accumulated expertise that cannot be quickly reconstituted. Training replacements requires time measured in years, not months. This creates lasting capability gaps that extend far beyond immediate tactical situations. Psychological impacts compound these losses. Surviving personnel experience the destruction of systems they believed invulnerable. This shatters confidence and creates hesitation that spreads through military organizations. Reports of vulnerability travel quickly through military channels, affecting decisions across wide areas, strategic paralysis, and cascading effects. Successful tactical strikes create strategic dilemmas that force difficult choices at every command level. Should systems remain stationary and accept vulnerability to precision strikes, or should they relocate and risk destruction during movement? Neither option provides safety, only varying degrees of danger. This impossible choice creates hesitation and slows decision-making. Commanders become cautious, prioritizing asset preservation over operational effectiveness. This caution reduces overall military capability even in areas not directly attacked. Observable effects appear rapidly. Offensive operations decline in affected sectors. Planned activities face delays or cancellation. Forces cannot risk forward deployment without adequate defense coverage. This creates cascading impacts across operational theaters. Defense networks must redistribute to compensate for losses. Systems relocate from secondary areas to fill critical gaps. This redistribution creates new vulnerabilities in previously covered zones. Assets protecting logistics hubs move to cover front-line positions, leaving those hubs exposed. Reconnaissance detecting these new gaps enables follow-up operations against newly vulnerable targets. Doctrinal reversal. Traditional military doctrine held that mobility enhanced survivability. Moving targets presented greater difficulty than stationary ones. This logic shaped generations of tactical thinking and operational planning. Modern reconnaissance capabilities reverse this calculus entirely. Persistent surveillance platforms don't need to predict target locations. They follow continuously, maintaining contact indefinitely. They don't need immediate engagement. They can wait for optimal conditions. Movement that once provided protection now creates extended vulnerability. Relocating systems must shut down protective sensors. To avoid detection, they must spread out, breaking network integrity. They must traverse predictable routes through exposed terrain. Each of these requirements creates exploitation opportunities. Conclusion: understanding the new battlefield. These developments illustrate broader truths about contemporary military operations. Victory no longer depends solely on overwhelming firepower or technological superiority. Success requires deep understanding of system vulnerabilities, accurate behavioral prediction, and strikes executed at precise moments of maximum enemy weakness. Modern platforms have transformed warfare by serving multiple roles simultaneously. They provide persistent surveillance, enabling continuous situational awareness. They function as patient strike platforms, waiting for optimal engagement conditions. They eliminate surprise by maintaining constant observation over operational areas. The psychological dimension cannot be understated. Military commanders now face calculations without satisfactory solutions. Every decision carries substantial risk. This uncertainty forces conservative choices that sacrifice operational effectiveness for questionable safety improvements. For forces adapting to this environment, lessons are clear. Victory does not require matching adversaries system for system or expenditure for expenditure. It requires exploiting moments when expensive technology becomes fragile through careful preparation, precise timing, and coordinated execution. As military operations continue evolving, one principle becomes increasingly clear. Success belongs not to forces spending the most or deploying the most advanced systems. Success belongs to forces that best understand timing, adapt most rapidly to changing conditions, and anticipate enemy vulnerabilities most accurately. The fundamental nature of aerial defense has transformed. Systems designed to protect movement now face their greatest vulnerability during that same movement. In this new environment, survival often depends on recognizing when remaining stationary offers better protection than relocation, despite traditional doctrine suggesting otherwise.